Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to the E-Tims podcast. Hopefully this is recording. We'll come to that in a second. My name is Desi, and I'm glad to say tonight I am joined by the motley crew of Ralph Malf. Good evening, Ralph, who appears to be indoors for a change.
How you doing? All right.
Ralph, before we start, are the dogs okay? Are they contained? Are they muzzled? Are they just
Sleeping.
Oh, nice. Okay.
He's got that contented look of a 14-year-old boy watching Porky's.
I was going to say, hopefully Hector's rants don't upset the dogs too much.
I was going to say, you look like a guy who's just had a happy ending somewhere. He looks that chilled.
Okay, well, that's the title for the podcast, Sorted Happy Ending, so we'll go with that. I don't know what picture I'm going to use to go with it right enough that Apple will allow us. But I also get to say welcome to Hector Bandido. Good evening, Hector.
Good evening, guys.
And last but not least, good evening to Monty C. Burns across the water with his new and fancy microphone setup with a cat in the background, I noticed.
Good evening, Desi. Good evening.
Yeah, so you're coming through loud and clear, Monty, I'm glad to say. So that's at least one technical difficulty we've managed to avoid tonight. Sadly, everyone, if you're wondering where last week's podcast was, it's somewhere in the Ethernet or internet, somewhere out there, because some person on this call, I won't say who it was, forgot to press record. And then the worst thing was I had received a whole 90 minutes of apologies from Hector and Monty and Ralph, because I was the only person who predicted Bodo Glimp would run over the top of us and make us look like a second-rate team. Hector's thankfully got over it now. He's finally came back to his senses. But you never miss much, to be brutally honest. And we'll
it was the finest podcast ever recorded that we didn't record.
Yeah, we'll touch on the main points that we can, that we can remember. Ralph, the first point I wanted to touch on was just to commemorate the passing of Frank Connor. I know I think you spoke to Lou McCarry about him.
Yeah, I couldn't speak highly enough of the guy. Still got that record of 100% wins as a manager, which I don't think anybody's matched. And he was an inspiration to everybody at the club at the time.
Yep, so RIP to Frank Connor, so I want to make sure we get that out of the way. A few of the results, nothing significant. The Hibs draw, we kind of talked about, but again, we're looking to the future tonight, folks. We're looking forward rather than looking back. So apologies if you're looking for anything retrospective. We will touch upon a few key items that have been in the news, especially recently. But we'll start with Hector, our resident tactician. On the famous mythical podcast, we did wonder last week about who would be the ideal Celtic forward line. And coincidentally, come the Tannadice game the other night, you did see your Maeda, Giacomakis and Forrest. I'm not sure if Forrest was in your top three, but I know. But so let's come to that, because that was an interesting selection, was it not, from the Tinker Man, as I'm calling him now, and
well, we thought that when we heard the team, but he was asked the question, explained it, that Jota and Abada just weren't available. So whether they've been struck down with some virus.
Has the Cotton Club reopened?
I don't think Abada would get in. He would be more a Viva. The Viva. He get the Viva. Right.
The Monday night club was when. Remember the Monday night club? That's for a certain Celtic Da vintage will know what the Monday night club was.
That's for a very different podcast.
Oh,
So yeah, his hands was kind of forced a wee bit with that, because he just said they'll be available this weekend, but they weren't available. That's the benefit of now getting these players back, and what he did in January as well, is it was getting the squad up to date. Do you know what? I actually thought the first 5-10 minutes could be a bit of a battle here. Then United, I thought, looked right up for it, and they put two up front against us. It kind of went 3-5-2 or 5-3-2. But they sat back and we just dominated. And the first goal, a wee bit lucky. But we've tried that corner quite a lot recently, haven't we? Get the kind of three guys going short. and we get the shot away this time, deflection. You don't shoot, you don't score. Debatable, and it was debatable, the Hatate challenge. Because watching that in real time, I've also seen replays and it slows it down, but let's be honest about it, in real time, I think we're all holding my breath thinking there's a potential red there. You seen the replay, thankfully, he slowed down towards the end and it wasn't a straight leg. He kind of bent his leg, but I don't think Beaton's got the fucking mentality to even work that out. I'm just surprised he didn't red card him because it was Beaton. Cure Alf in 5 minutes going to rant about him. But then after that, then the second goal, which I thought we won't get, was the one that Giakoumakis brilliantly controlled with his left arm. And then Maeda scored, but I don't know for you guys, but I thought he disallowed because he handball. Shows you that I don't know the rules. Don't know if you guys knew that would have counted. The ref certainly didn't know. So that was another one. Then the second half.
Scotland, because
it's weird.
It's the handball, that's why it's chalked off. But then
it's a weird one because not everybody knows it.
The collective wage was £5,000 the other night for officials at that game, and not one of them knew the rules of the game.
And that's the real biggie, isn't it? It's not so much us just being numpties now and again. We should know every rule in football, but your job as an referee is to know the rules, and that sounds as if it's quite a basic one for these guys. Second half, I felt we kind of coasted, total control, and big Giakoumakis. Penalty box for 6 yard poacher. And can I just say, his first goal, right? Not many strikers would have been interested in that one. The one where the keeper dropped it. They just gave up. He followed in. And he did the same against Dundee in the league a few weeks ago when I think he made it 2-1 at the time.
He did.
So having that's a big difference between him and other strikers we've got in forwards. He is that 6 yard box, give me the ball, and I'll be in there. So that's a big plus for us. Very different. Him and Kyogo, I think, would be a brilliant partnership. How Ange could do that, that's his job. I don't know. So well done. Difficult game of paper, but we coasted it. Well done.
And Monty, we're talking about Giakoumakis there, but Maeda, the performance, the showing he put in. I mean, I seen that actually. I couldn't believe people were actually complaining about his final ball at times, given the fact that the guy must have ran a good 15 kilometres, whatever, that whole night.
In sprints.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, the two things to that Ange talked about it a couple of games ago, that people were on his back. You don't realise that guy actually helped us win that game by preventing their keeper, whoever it was, with the ball at his feet somewhere. Very good. I think I put it up on our WhatsApp about he's an upgrade on a Gaff, but he's all the passing ability of a fucking Stuart Slater or something, or whatever put in. But I didn't mean that negatively against him, because the guy just runs flat out. I think when he gets a proper break in the summer, and I think when he they'll be culturally attuned then to Scotland. I think he's just a cracking player. We don't have anyone else with that pace. Forrest used to have that pace. He's lost a little bit of it. Abada doesn't have it. Jota doesn't have it. I mean, he's just lightning.
Kyogo's the closest, isn't he?
Kyogo's the closest. So, and it was interesting hearing Postecoglou talk about that's what he wants. All three of his front men are just relentless in closing down. And listening to James McPeak through the week, being very complimentary about playing against Celtic, and also complimentary of the manager. He was saying exactly that you've just no peace. You don't know who's closing you down from where. It's just relentless. And he talked about how we start the game relentless, how we go for the jugular relentless if we score, and how we start the second half. And to the discussion on the cup match, I actually thought, Hector mentioned Dundee United retreating and sitting back. I actually don't think they did. I think they were trying to do to us what we do to them. If you look, their front three at all times trying to press. Remember, Joe Hart had one little wobble of a bad. You're like, but they tried to do that. But I think we, after about 10 or 15 minutes, just purely imposed our game on them. And we did the same at the start of the second half. It was just a good performance. There's another level, I think, and I think we're going to see it in the next 9 or 10 games.
Just a point, Des. I know you and Ralph will come on about the match, but just as you were talking there, Monty, the bit in my head saying, if you're a Dundee United or whoever, you wouldn't try and play your game unless you play it every week. You can't hit a switch and do that, right?
Yeah.
So the bit I'm thinking about is, if you know we're going to play that way, why would you then not try and avoid to go up against us playing a similar style of football? No, it's not what I like to watch, but if you've got their resources and you get the ball, surely you'd want to hit a channel and get us turning rather than bring us onto you, pressing us outside your penalty box.
Mm-hmm.
I've just thrown it out there. I just thought it'd be a basic thing that one or two teams would try against us.
But it also made, sorry, Monty, I was just to add to that, but you also made me think there, Monty and Hector, like that time the first game they played us this season, they effectively played us the state we were in then. Yep. I mean, I just think that team's evolving. Remember, they were playing beautiful football that day at Parkhead. I mean, like triangles, moving, taking. I mean, like lovely. They basically played us off the park.
But we were poor though.
That's what I'm saying. So, but like I shows you, and then Monty's even saying it wasn't even a great performance. It was a good performance.
Good performance.
So there's still plenty, and then there's still plenty to come. So before I move on to Ralph, Monty, do you have something else to say there?
There was something just on Hector's point, but I forgot.
We'll come back to you, because what I was going to say, Ralph, was before we'll let you come on to the referees at the end of this kind of match, but let's just concentrate on the actual match. It was good, Ralph, to see the actual changes being made. Like again, it seemed to be an overall a really good squad performance. The game was done. Take the star guys off.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a situation where we can pretty much replace the whole team, and whoever comes on will fit in. But the difference, I think, against Dundee United was that they all made a significant contribution. McCarthy stood out for me for the first time since he's joined us, because he was always there. He was like an immobile Neil Lennon, ready to take up a slack, ready to get the pass and make a pass. Dembele showed that there's a player in there. With regards to him, with him being so young and being so small, there's always that chance he'll get a growth spurt. And at that age, that can affect balance. It can affect the way you play football, even down to getting a pass right. And I was kind of worried that was why he faded out of the picture a bit. But some of the stuff him and Rogic were doing, it was like they've been playing together for years. And yet they'd only been on the park together for 20 minutes or something. I thought it was fantastic to see finally that substitutes are doing what they're asked. And maybe that's because of the rotation. They know that they might not always be substitutes. They've got something to aim for.
Again, it was interesting the fact that we didn't have Jota and Abada. So, Hector, we suddenly see Mikey Johnson coming on and Dembele coming on. So, again, it's suddenly these we ended up. We'll come on to Kyogo and that later on. But it was interesting to see that we kind of, and then your star man, Rogic, maybe getting a wee rest rather than being the go-to guy. So McCarthy gets a wee 15 to 20 minutes. No, again, so just getting a wee bit of exposure for them all, because it's going to be a big 9/10 games to come.
He did a bit of good management there, and by that, I mean about the squad, the morale aspect of it, because these guys, he'll be asking them to keep pushing, over 100 mile an hour, but we get quicker and quicker as we peak. His words, and we've mentioned this in the podcast, at the end of the season, that he tries to peak them based on his experience in Australia, but it's like a grand final. We laugh at that, but that's how they kind of do things. But the likes of Mikey Johnson, who was sort of went out the picture again, Dembele, who was injured pretty much all season, he's just come back, but he's brought him in. And McCarthy, who's not kicked a ball for weeks, I think giving them a bit of game time in a cup game, I think it just keeps morale high. They go to train the next day or the day after, and everyone's buzzing and fighting for a place. And I just think that's the important bit of management. So I was really happy to see him do that.
Yeah.
I think part of rotating the team, there's a lot of subtext and a lot of what the manager does that we see that we don't see in the background. You can surmise, but there's a lot of obvious things too. Team morale, the notion of a cohesive unit, and all the mantras that he keeps talking about. He wants the ability to swap people in and out of positions without there being any disruption, and that's his standard. And then from there, you put better players in a position, then you get a better standard. It looks like they've all bought into it. It doesn't look like you've any stragglers there or anybody who's sulking. And a lot of that is a combination of both what the manager and his staff are doing, but it's also a combination. I think the other part of it is it's what McGregor's doing. McGregor's building that culture and setting the standard. And I noticed today 3 or 4 of the first team players talking about how McGregor sets the example and sets the standard for the team. So the likes of McCarthy, it'd be very easy for McCarthy to throw his toys out of pram. 25 games, 30 game a season, Premier League player coming to Celtic. and barely getting a look in. Be very, very easy for him to huff. But he's at the right stage, right age. He's 30, 31. He's at the right age and maturity to understand and buy into what the manager does. Plus, he's a Celtic man. You've seen other players huff like that in the past. Beton, Busquets, the Bethlehem Busquets, didn't get a sniff the other night, but he didn't need to. You know, Ange is doing, as Hector points out, a very, very clever job of rotating his staff rotating his team. And I think that going into the last 10 games this season, gives us even more momentum than what we're seeing on the pitch. Because if you're hungry and you want to play, in you get. If you're nervous and you can't handle it, you can come out and someone else can come in. It's okay. There's nobody judging. And I think it's a really, really important thing now as we go into the business end.
I would say there's one exception. But only one, and you mentioned them, Callum McGregor. We don't have a like-for-like replacement. He's the glue. He's the glue that holds that team together end to end. Right? He's our best number 6. He's our best number 8. He's our best number. He's just an all-round fantastic player. And I feel if he's missing, it's such a massive hole for us to. I don't see a player that steps in to do what he can do.
See, that was going to be my question there when Monty was alluding to that there. Because, like, looking at, say the other night, we're praising Ange for rotating the squad where possible, etc., etc. But do we just game up? And I'm trying to phrase this in a non-negative way because it's not a criticism, it's just an observation. I'm not having a go at him. But, like, as you say, Hector, we don't have a like-for-like replacement for McGregor. So should we maybe be, if we go free up at the United, should we be looking at getting his replacement time? I mean, should we be actually looking at somebody new in the squad, or is that a case that Ange will probably replace, or no replace, but we'll target somebody in the summer? But also, Joe Hart. We don't have a replacement for Joe Hart. So why not take Joe Hart off after 60 minutes to give another keeper 30 minutes playing with Starfeld? And
it was only 2-0 at that point. I wouldn't be doing that 2-0 in a cup game.
No, not in a cup game. Not in a cup.
I get your point though. The only thing I would say about McGregor is everything he's kind of says right in terms of Ange and wanting like for like and take one in, one out. But there's always an exception. There's always a player that's just that bit better or more unique. And it's a difficult. Maybe Degucci can fulfil some of that. We've just not seen him yet. Maybe he can fulfil some of that number 6 role. But McGregor's not just the best player in my opinion. The playmaker. He's the captain. He's kind of everything.
Right. Well, there's sort of like to continue that bit for Ralph. If only there was a player like, say, maybe Aberdeen had just lost a key player recently who maybe had experience of playing in that role for Celtic and could maybe like fill a nice wee 20 minutes or so, i.e. Scott Brown. Is that a case of what could have been?
It could have been, but I don't think Brown wanted it. I think the revolution had come and he didn't want to be a part of it. To go back to the replacement for McGregor, Ideguchi and McCarthy, if you could put them in a blender and come out with one player, you'd maybe have it. And throw in a bit of beat on it as well. And I think you'll see perhaps it's the mentality of McGregor more than the ability on the pitch. He's been there, he's done it, and he leads by example. That you can't coach. And that'll just have to come with the experience of Ideguchi and McCarthy's got experience but not winning things. It's a difficult one for the manager, but McGregor's he seems to be supremely fit. He's always there. It doesn't matter what's wrong with him. So it's maybe not a priority. I'm saying that now. He'll go and get run over at the weekend or something. But I don't think it's a priority to.
Maybe other players will step up as they do. Maybe things adapt and other players step up and suddenly it's a slightly different system. Remember the time when, who was it? The midfield became Ryan Christie, Tom Rogic and Callum McGregor. Was it at Hampden? It's not Hampden. Murrayfield, we played Hearts in semi-final. Yeah. And ended up with those three. And those three went on a run for about 6 or 8 weeks and they were dynamite. And that wasn't at that time our best in the field. But players adapt. Some players will step up, take more responsibility. So maybe, it naturally takes care of itself.
As I say, we're not criticising. We'll leave the criticism to the referees, but we'll come to that in a second. But possibly criticising, let me just read something from inside the SPFL on Twitter from the other night. Hector, this is for you. God love Big Starfelt. He's not the best with the ball at his feet, but his teammates don't give him some terrible passes to deal with. What's your thoughts on that, Hector?
I'm trying to keep this a positive podcast. I mean, you know my thoughts on him. And
tell everyone. Share.
No, I want to keep it as a positive podcast. That'll be my end of season. Thinking ahead to next season.
He's been called back up with Sweden, which was good to see. I noticed the internationals.
Him and Taylor, you know my thoughts. Him and Taylor, I've seen enough. I'm not going to say any more. You'll be pleased to know.
But can they not develop further? Around them? Would you not be have to give them a chance to?
I gave it a chance. I was one of the few defending Taylor, as Desi knows, online. Him and me, I think, were people getting tore into him. But I've seen enough. In my opinion, and listen, I'm happy. I'd love to be proved wrong, mate. I'd love to be proved wrong, right? But I can see development with almost every other player, right? You can see your midfield guys. You can see your Turnbulls. You can see Hatatis, O'Reillys, Abadas. You can see all of them developing and getting better. Jota. I just think there's maybe one or two where they've hit their peak as far as I can see. Hope I'm wrong.
See, I don't know. But again, I don't know if you are willing to see what the rest of us are willing to see. So
the rest of us? You mean you three or the rest of the Celtic?
Monty's been praising them too.
Oh, he's at the wind-up.
I have to say, I'm quite impressed with the amount of times Starfelt blocks a through ball, getting played through into an angle, and he's always there to pick up. It might not
how
be
about
the
try
best.
to use his left foot?
Straight on, but actually watching the game, I think he's got good kind of game management. He knows where the ball's going to be. He might not be the best. He might look dead clumsy, etc. But I think he's definitely got good attributes, and he does shine every now and again.
Some of our best.
You still want your defenders to be Big Roy, not even Big Roy.
No, I want a defender. I want a defender who's not scared to use his left foot.
Some of our defenders in the past, some of our best central defenders in the past 20 years have been actually quite clumsy on the ball. Mialbi was shite on the ball. Mark Reaper was shite on the ball.
I can only apologise.
If you can't, and that's why I asked.
He's on the swally already. He's off tomorrow.
That's why I asked. Why do you hate Swedish Celtic?
Do not compare Starfelt with Mialbi or Reaper. Seriously, don't go there. Don't.
I'm telling you.
No, you're not telling me nothing.
Welcome to Gone Fishing with Monty Seabanks.
I hope he's fishing. I hope he's fishing. He's not.
If I look at the statistics this
season, for fuck's sake. Is that you two code, James? Aye.
The slide rule pass.
As Anne says, I don't know what game you were watching, mate. We won 3-0. His job is to keep a clean sheet. We've done it repeatedly with him in the team.
The team's job is to keep it clean. The team's job. We defend high up. Our defence is high up the pitch. Thankfully, if it was deeper, we'd be losing a lot more goals with that dumpling in the team.
I don't know. I'd quite like to see. I don't know if anybody does Celtic stats out there. I don't know if it's a popular thing. The Celtic stats or the analysis, but it would be interesting to see actual match involvement with Carter Vickers and Starfelt, the amount of times the ball. Again, this could be Hector. To be fair, it could be the opposition targeting Starfelt because they believe, like you, he's a weak link. But it would be interesting to see the actual involvement. I know there's been lots of folks saying his aerial stats are up, etc., etc. I'm not buying it.
Desi, the eye test. The eye test is enough. See a guy who can't use his left. A guy who puts his right foot across his left. A guy who is a guy playing with us. I'm sorry. A guy who takes a fresh air shot with his left foot. His left fresh air shot Monday night.
We lionised fucking Bobo Balde, who could barely
no.
Just because he was huge and scary.
No.
Let's not forget, this is a guy who thinks Beaton taking 4 touches is a good safety measure. You know what I mean? When there's not even a player anywhere near him.
He's a game changer, Beaton.
This is why if you watch
when he gets fucking sent off.
Listen, unlike used to, right? I've got high standards for Celtic. I want the best. Users happy with mediocrity. That's entirely up to you guys.
Who would you replace him with in Scottish football then? What other centre half in another Scottish?
No, wait a minute. No. I'm looking to replace him this summer. You can't do it now. Right,
but who? In a proven Scottish.
No, I'm looking for Angie's. I'm looking for Angie's scouting network to work a bit of magic. I don't think it'd be difficult to get a left back and a centre half in to replace him and Taylor this. Because I think they're doing that honestly. All joking aside or whatever, right? The the scope for team improvement.
Yes.
With some quality in there. A Juranovic style player at left back and another quality. So this summer I'm hoping that's what he does.
I agree. And by the way,
Starfelt's an international defender with vast European experience.
Yeah. But just on it, if you go to the dark outcome that let's say the two loanees don't sign.
Exactly.
Would you be happy with Starfelt moving to the right where he's more comfortable and us signing a left-sided centre half? That's to you, Hector, because that solves the problem for everybody.
Hector, can you hear me? What was that? Yes?
No.
I think it stands out.
Got one.
But that also brings us right. So this is what we on our WhatsApp chat. And by the way, Monty,
you've turned this into a negative podcast. This is not a positive one. You've been off for 50 minutes of negativity, Mr. Negative Man.
It's all positive.
No, it's no. You're causing a riff-raff, a bit of argy-bargy. Positivity.
The party needs somebody to put on that record that needs the lights.
Honest to God, I find an empty hoosh you.
Monty, that arcane reference you made the other night was Maeda is like an upgrade on Agat's pace, but carrying the accuracy of the passing of Wakaso Mubarak. Classic. Yes, right. No, but again, Ralph. So come at you then. So Hector's down crying our star man Starfelt. But in my defence, I said Starfelt at least turns up. And then I was told he couldn't lace Julian's boots when I queued them to Julien on the ball or piece that up against somebody. And I said neither can Julien lace his own boots. You know what I mean? So do you still think we'll never see Julien, Ralph, as you and I have been saying?
Negativity again, more negativity. Here he goes.
He's just trying to clear a space in the squad for your solution.
Exactly. That's a £7 million player sitting on his arse.
We're talking about Celtic in the next games coming up.
We're looking towards the future.
And it's been 20 minutes of you being negative and picking the hole and everything.
Do you think we'll see Mr. Glass before the end of the season?
He's mentioned. Who's he mentioned? Players that aren't good enough here and there. What do you like, man?
What we've seen so far is the manager has strengthened the midfield and strengthened the forwards so that we've got replacements in all positions. I think the next window we'll see him do that defence. I think when you said earlier on that perhaps we've got no stragglers, we've got Julian, we've got a Yeti, we've got a few others that maybe their attitude isn't what he's been looking for, and they'll be away. And any money we get for that, I don't think we'll get much. We'll go towards replacements. Starfelt and Taylor are good enough for the Scottish League. Maybe not good enough yet for the next level. But bringing in two players of equal or better ability will bring out the best in all of them. It seems to be front and it'll work at the back. And that's been positive. So something that we could bring to this podcast.
Well said, Ralph. Well said.
That's a lovely, that's a positivity, CSC. I think Monty had a good point there. If and when Carter Vickers buggers off to Fulham, there's some more positivity.
We're straight back in again.
No, I mean, but he's still getting his $100,000 a week, so you'll not be caring. But so it'll be interesting if Starfelt does get moved. And again, we talked about Dane Murray, etc. In the last podcast that disappeared, Hector, we were talking about the B team.
And Peter Law at the back, he was good.
Yeah. So again, there may be opportunity for, again, once Ange has got that initial high pressure season out the way, you know what I mean? Hopefully win the league, then there might be even more opportunity. So that
you're hoping he's not going to make many changes this summer, right? He's done a hell of a lot in the two windows so far, right? So I think you're maybe looking at maybe 3, 4, depending who moves out, right? But 3 or 4 maybe this summer of first team. I'm not talking about guys who are maybe younger players coming in, perhaps get development, but maybe 3 or 4 first team squad players. But we'll see.
So talking about that, and again, I hope this doesn't sound negative, but we also touched upon, this was last week, and a lot of people have jumped on this bandwagon since, young Master Doak. Apparently, I don't know if it's actually official yet. I've not seen any coverage. Has actually joined Liverpool yet, but apparently he was heading down to the Liverpool Academy.
It's all but done.
Is it
so
done?
Again,
Hector, is it a done deal?
It's all but done, apparently. All but done. Yeah.
This and I know it flagged it when we were thinking about sort of topics. We're in this kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And for someone like Doak versus someone like Dembele, I look at the two of them through kind of different lenses. Doak's 16. He's obviously got potential. He's going to go somewhere where he realistically is not going to get near the first team for 2 years. Dembele is in a different position in that he's near the first team, but he's got to gamble now. He's got to toss a coin and say, am I going to get a run here, or am I better going somewhere else? But he equally, in a Premier League environment, is at least 2 years away from the first team. So if you weigh up the short career of a footballer, especially those types of footballers, it's completely understandable when a club like Liverpool lays down huge money for you, will look after a family, put you under, supposedly one of the draws is he's going to be working under one of the world's renowned coaches in Klopp. Klopp won't know his name. Remember the guy from Preston North End that they signed, that we wanted the centre half? Klopp didn't even know who the fucking guy was. So we have to, the disappointment for me in these young fellas is always tempered by, and you don't like to think that it's a positive, but if you look at what happened with Islam Feruz, who's just poorly advised. Young fellow went to Chelsea. Is he even playing football now? I couldn't tell you. I think he's gone. I don't even think he's playing at all. So 2 years in a short career might sound like a lot, but in 2 years' time, both of those young fellas could be established first-team squad players. They both have the talent to be regular starters at Celtic, certainly domestically, and they'll get European exposure. Why the fuck do they not have advisors saying that to them? What is the draw on short? I know the answer, Hector. You and I have talked about this on podcasts around the motivations of agents. But if I'm looking after either of those two young fellas, the same way that Moussa Dembele's agent did, you put a career plan in front of them, you tell them what's best for them over the next 15 years, not the next fucking 2. And then you convince them this is the place for you to get profile with profile in the medium to long term is significantly more money. And I get the draw of Liverpool. Don't know what Dembele's draw is. But why in the name of God would you send a 16-year-old to a club that he's not going to get anywhere near the first team for at least 2 years?
I would also say sorry, Desi, it's important to maybe differentiate them a wee bit as well, right? So the young Dembele has came through Celtic's academy since whatever, the age of 7 or 8. He's been there for pretty much 10 years. The kid's 18, he's been with Celtic for 10 years. People maybe forget, like Kieran Tierney was and Callum McGregor. But Ben Doak's different. Celtic nicked him from Ayr United's academy. So we've got to put all this into context, right? This wasn't a kid that we've took from the age of 8 like others. He was at Ayr United, he's a kid for Ayrshire. We took him for Ayr, came to us. So, you know, you know that's the game, swings and roundabouts, right? But the thing with Doak, and again, I put allegedly out there, but you know, they're talking like 10, 12 grand a week with Liverpool. If you're a 16-year-old kid, I don't know his background, his family situation, but you know, there's a strong chance they'll have nowhere near that money, like most of us. To suddenly your kid at 16 who could get injured tomorrow, got a big signing on fee plus 10 or 12 grand a week for 3 years guaranteed minimum. We can all say what we want, but in the real world, that's a hell of a difficult thing to turn down.
That's a millionaire at 19 that probably wouldn't even play a first team game.
But that's the Islam Feruz example is why that should never be recommended to a young footballer.
Right.
But say your family's not
quiz time. No, don't Hector. Hector, quiz time. Everybody likes a quiz. Quick quiz. How many first team appearances in his career has Islam Feruz made?
It's got to be less than 20.
He was at Hibs for about 5 games or something, wasn't he?
It's got to be less than. I'm going to go for
done, Hector. He was at Hibs for 6 games. I'll get you a point for that. He made a total of career. This is career, by the way, not season. Career. 20 appearances.
Jesus Christ.
In April 2020, it was reported that Islam Feruz has retired from football to run a company making designer skip hats. That boy again. He was touted as the next big thing. The belly's the same. He was the next big thing. The transition is unbelievable, and I know we are like we have great examples in McGregor and Forrest. Tierney left, but it's still a great example of managing to bring a player through and make that leap. But it is a phenomenal gulf between looking good and even like a B team or maybe all reserve team. But growing up, is it this man romantic, Hector? You might is it this my romantic nature? But we always seem to have the next big thing coming through. Always, remember, it was like your Mark Buckchels and your various other players back in there was always going to be the next Nicholas. I mean, it was Nicholas when we were growing up. And then
Jerry Craney was kind of
Jerry Craney.
These type of guys, and what's his name? Tony Watt.
But
we poached him. We poached him for Airdrie, Tony Watt again, 16, and we poached him. So I think there's a bit of context, but you're right. And just now, the one that's really rated highly is Rocco Vata. He's 16, but you can see clips of him now. Unlike when we were younger, we had to go and watch the reserves playing, which didn't happen very often. You can now see the B team games or clips of it, or he plays the Republics as under 18s. And you can see he's a talented boy across the. But I get your point. But it's difficult. The transition for being the best player at 16 to being a first team player. What's the percentage? Is it 1 in 100, 1 in 200? I don't know.
But my point on this is the short termism. At 16 or 18, and Liam Miller is another example where it didn't really work at United, but Miller took a season. Miller played 25, 27 games in that season. And the story by repute, and again allegedly, Fintan Drury was Liam Miller's agent. And Miller was obviously on a trajectory. Remember, Ferguson came up to watch Vincent Kompany and ended up coming back and saying, I want that boy Miller. She's brilliant. And Drury came in. The deal was already done. And Drury came in to meet O'Neill. Say, right, what's the terms? And Drury went 50 grand a week. And O'Neill went, really? He went, aye, really? He's like, close the door on your way out, Finn. So if you look at Miller's career after Celtic, that's my point on Doak and Dembele. If you're really that set on going somewhere and making money, at least give yourself the profile to go and do it. Give yourself the chance. And they have the chance now. Where wherever they go next, for 3 years, yes, you pick up a wage, there's £1 million in the bank, and how many million do you need to live? Versus 3 years, hard graft, 1 season, 2 seasons, first team squad, first team player at Celtic. Then you move, and then you move for 20 grand a week, and now you're established, and now you have a fucking career where you'll make.
But say it doesn't work out. But hold on. See the best player at 16. What you've just mapped out is the sunny day scenario, right? And I get what you've just done there. But how many of them actually fulfill the sunny day scenario? So say being the best player at 16, the development stops, and suddenly he's 17, 18, and he's nowhere near the first team. And he's not back a 3-year contract on 10, 12 grand a week, and they're saying on fee. What would you do? I mean, that's the reality. I'm just trying to put it in there. I'm a Celtic fan.
No, I get you. But right? the opportunity cost in this won't be 12 grand a week, because Celtic will offer him maybe 4, 5. So the opportunity loss here is a tiny amount of money in the medium term.
Oh, it's not tiny.
But no, it is in the grand scheme of the opportunity of win.
What you can
earn if you make it.
We're talking about 6-7 grand a week, right? Is a gap. 300 grand a year over 3 years, £1 million pretty much.
But it's massive. You're taking £1 million gamble to go into an environment that you are fractionally likely to make it.
A kid of 16.
Again, it's a percentage game, isn't it? Right. So, I'm just looking at another example, which I think is coming at this from another side. Right. Here's another quiz question for you, Ralph. I'll start with you. How many games do you think Patrick Roberts played for Celtic?
It was only 1 season, wasn't it? Maybe about 25.
Monty?
I'm going to go for about 32 over the couple of seasons he was here.
2 seasons when he was there.
Hector?
2 seasons he was there. I would say between 30 and 40, 35.
55 games.
Wow.
That's 55 games and he scored 15 goals. So again, Monty, going along your lines of right. So he was at Fulham. He only played 19 games for Fulham when he became the wonder kid. 1 game for Man City, then farmed out. So he's went Celtic, Girona, Norwich, Middlesbrough, Derby, Troyes, and now Sunderland, where he's starting to, I think, regain some form because he's now stable. He's clear of the Man City thing. But again, there's no way, like, he's at Fulham as a young boy, suddenly gets purchased for 12 million. So he's suddenly in, Hector, he's in the multi-million. You know, he's signing on for $1 million too.
Yep.
And then maybe getting 30, 40 grand a week. So again, I can see money does, at that age you have to secure yourself. He's probably like the same as your Tierneys, etc. Bought their mum and dad their house. You know, that's the idea. Like even your James McCarthy, they were thinking along the lines. And then, so Doak, I can understand why he'd want to do it, but I was thinking the other day, as an example for Doak, and I don't know if this is a good example, so you can tell me, there's a good chance he could follow the career path of Ryan Kent, i.e. go to Liverpool, no go anywhere, and then eventually get farmed out to a Rangers-style club. But would you say Ryan Kent's been successful at Rangers? I.e. he's playing in Europe, he's won a league, he's a star man in their team. So he gets sold for $7 million, he's got the money. So is that a good example to look at? You know what I mean?
That's Dembele. That's Dembele's model. The only difference being Dembele had the balls and an agent who was genuinely looking after his medium to long term to say, go up there, play, win a few things, get yourself some European experience, get your profile up. You'll move on after 2 years. And remember, that was supposedly, again, allegedly.
But Dembele was 19 when we got him, and he was in the Fulham first team.
Aye.
And we get a clause, we got him for $500,000. The Spurs tried to get him for $6 million in January.
Spurs had signed him for 11. Sorry, Hector, Spurs had signed Dembele. It was all done. But the clause was he was to go back to Fulham for the rest of the season because they were wanting to push on for the playoff. And Spurs says, no, he's coming to us. And Fulham went, well, we're not letting him go because we need him. And then, so that was like, oh, agreed he was going to go to Spurs. Right. And
but ultimately, it swings and roundabouts. Right. So if a Doak doesn't want to stay here, we've signed the guy for Watford, Lowell, centre half, who looks a player. He's about 18, 19. Physically, he's about 6'3", 6'4", but he looks a player. We've signed him. We've signed the keeper for Arsenal's academy. He plays the B team as well. Was that the Arsenal Academy's goalkeeper we got in?
I think so, actually. Yeah, he was the one talking about Joe Hart today, yeah.
So we're going out and doing it to other teams. So it swings and roundabouts. That's just the nature of the beast, you know. It's how things happen.
Yeah, but my point, and it's a good debate, lads. I know we probably want to move it on, but my point is purely on how they're advised. And that, for me, is the tragedy in this, because Islam Feruz, without a doubt in my mind, would have become a genuine football player at Celtic Football Club. Paddy Roberts, had he come back, would not have been a journeyman. But to your point also, Desi, he's picked up a ton of money because he already had the profile that we give him. And I think for those kids, a proper agency, maybe we should start one, a proper agency that looks after their medium-term interests and long-term eventually. That's what I think those young players need. And they by and large don't have them because they're picked up by a bunch of fucking thugs and crooks.
Well, it's funny because do you remember Brendan Rodgers when he sat down with young players? He used to put that on a flow chart, and he would say by age 16 you need to be doing this and earning that, by 18 this, by 20 this, by 25 that, and he would put down everything that came with each level of success and financial reward. You know, you'll buy your parents a house, you'll have this, you'll be set for life by, and that gave them a kind of career plan. And that's maybe something that is missing just now at the club. But having said that, if you're getting 12 grand a week for sitting on the bench at Liverpool and 4 grand a week for sitting on the bench at Celtic, at that age, you're going to be influenced and you're going to take the 12 grand a week for sitting in Liverpool. It's not straightforward, it's that simple.
Yeah, it really is a minefield, as in trying to plot somebody's career. Because again, Mikey Johnson's been getting to the level of maybe this time. How many years have we been saying that from somebody like Mikey Johnson? So again, for like, he's basically a few years ahead of Doak, but it's the same sort of thing. It'd be interesting, like, your McGregor's got away to your Notts County, learn, again, I know it's an old-fashioned look at things, say like that, but learns his trade in a tough league, etc., toughens up, then comes back, and then gets promoted straight away, as in they can see he's worthy of getting. It's interesting to see.
But who'd be a manager?
Like that young boy who went to Leeds, held you or whatever. I mean, like, I know he only got a game because they had 4 centre-halves injured, but he was immediately into their first team squad. So I always wondered why he never get promoted to our first team squad. We were going for like a Dane Murray and that. They happened to Dane Murray, but that boy was always talked about being.
No, they did. He was in the first team squad.
Hector, no, like all the time.
But what happened is we wanted to get him to sign a contract, and he made it clear he was moving down south. So then they took him out of the first team squad, which I think is fair enough. Yeah.
Well, that ties us back to, and Ralph, we've discussed this a few times, that Anne's saying he's only interested in players who want to be here. So that's what's been very interesting, Ralph, about Dembele getting game time and kind of, I mean, like actually shining, as you say. A lot of players can disc down tools, that kind of play within themselves, just play their time out kind of thing. But you don't know if he's playing to shine to catch attention or he's playing to shine because they've had positive talks behind the scenes.
I think if he'd get someone lined up, he wouldn't be going out to play in case he get hurt and put the knackers on it. So I don't think he's made his mind up yet. And I think what happens between now and the end of the season might convince him, even if it's just to get another year out of him or 2 years out of him. I just don't think he's made his mind up. You could see that in his attitude against Dundee United. He wouldn't have been on the bench if there was somebody else in the wings. And I think the manager would have known, he's with him every day, he would have known if somebody's been talking to him and there's maybe an arrangement somewhere. So I think it's very much open as to what happens with him.
Yeah. So can we change the topic a wee bit? Can I give you some good news? And you know what it is, but for one listener, hello there, the one listener. So the good news is, so Turnbull's now fully fit, ready for selection. He's been training now for several weeks. And really good news is Kyogo's now back in training. He got some surgery done. I think it was kept in the QT. So the injury he got just at Christmas time away to St Johnstone it was a bad tear on his hammy, but it required surgery by all accounts. And that's why it was out for so long. So he is now back sprinting and training, not just like jogging, sprinting and training.
Hector, I'm sorry, but I thought you were a born and bred Scotsman, because you're obviously not adopting the Scottish media persona here of this will give Ange a selection headache. This is actually bad news. You know what I mean? You want to be down to your bare bones. So again, that is like, it's quite incredible that the potential forward connotations that are available then, Monty. Again,
because Monty didn't press record at the last podcast, right? We'll ask
you'll be hearing from my lawyers.
We'll ask the question again, right? So we're obviously, he's nowhere ready for this weekend against Ross County. But I'd imagine just after the international break, is it the game against Rangers in the 2nd or 3rd of April, isn't it?
Yeah.
So assuming he's in the squad and available for selection, right? What's your front three going to Ibrox?
So the 3rd of April, 12 a.m, 12 p.m. That's the next.
Extenuating factors into that before I give you them. Is the international break before that?
Yeah, we play Ross County on the 19th of March, and then we break. I think Scotland are playing Poland. I don't know who Ireland are playing or whoever. Japan. I'm not sure who they're playing. Australia, they'll have a game stay. So have a few. Denmark, Matt O'Reilly, congratulations.
Matt O'Reilly's in the under-21s.
Giacomakis in the Greek squad.
Giacomakis in the Greek squad. Starfelt, Swedish squad.
Move on.
I also meant to mention that earlier on when Ralph touched upon it. We're talking about getting rid of the kind of jetties, etc. Well, but Giacomakis says Barkas has been a great help since he's came. He's helped him settle. That's his best friend. So mind we used to buy 2 players from a place so they could keep each other company. So it's nice to know Barkas is in the running for friend of the year. So that was good. Yeah, right. So Monty,
they're all fully fit for selection. Sunny day. No caveats. They're all fully fit. Who's your front three?
Taking into account the international break, taking into account the rest of the fixtures in April, I would go with Jota, Abada, Giacomakis.
Why?
Why not?
Why not? No, I didn't ask you why not. I asked you why.
Who's your front three?
I believe. Sorry, just let me come back to Ralph on the why. Then, if we can humour my logic for a second. It's really straightforward. I believe that is our most potent front three. I believe that the pace and the ability to score and come in from the back post from Abada, Jamesy Forrest used to give us that, but he's not that type of player anymore. I believe that Jota's dead ball delivery, his ability to get crosses into the box, his ability to beat a player, and he fucking destroyed Tavernier last time. I believe that is hugely important, and I think he's our best winger. And having seen Giacomakis get fitter and more confident, he gives us all of that closing down ability that Kyogo gives us, minus some of the pace. But he also gives us that extra dimension in the box that Kyogo does. But you got to gently with Kyogo. And bearing in mind, there's another game at Celtic Park and there's a semi-final to come over the coming 3 weeks as well. So we have options, but that would be my starting three. So there's my logic as well. Discuss.
Ralph, what's your front three, Ralph?
Just to give you also a heads up here, the Japan's fixtures, Thursday the 24th of March, Japan play Australia away, and then Tuesday the 29th of March, Japan plays Vietnam at home. So that's there. They'll get two big games. Japan are currently second, I think, but they're favourites to win their group over Australia. That'll be an interesting game between them and Logic.
You would have to include Maeda, just simply to harass and torment a defence that is clumsy at best and clueless at worst. I would agree with you on Jota tearing Tavernier apart, but you can't leave out Giacomakis because the ball is going to bounce about there and he does only need one touch and he does score goals. So maybe the front three isn't actually the formation, maybe five with Callum McGregor in the middle and leave Starfelt at the back just to give them hope. And just
you were doing really
sorry,
well.
What's your front three? Sorry, what's your front three? I know he's got Starfelt and everybody else. What's your front three, Collar?
Three for that game would be the same three that started against Dundee United, knowing full well that you've got backup if you need it.
So you've got Forrest, you've got Maeda on the wings, and Giacomakis in the middle.
To the occasion at Ibrox, and he did seem to play very well.
Yeah.
Either Desi's got a terrible headache or he's pulling faces. Go on, Desi, go for it. Who's your three?
I'm sorry. I don't.
Who's going to go?
I think James Forrest, as much as I can appreciate somebody who can stop a ball these days and pause, I don't really think that's what we need at Ibrox. That'll come in handy for our games. James Forrest is clearly on the way out, as in a first team starter for Celtic. I don't think he's got it. Even the other night, he was a yard slow.
So negative, isn't he? So negative.
I am just I'm saying. I did say.
You became Hugh Keevins on this podcast, by the way.
You had to apologise last week for that.
Oh, I didn't apologise for fuck all.
The thing that what I'm saying is Forrest's experience and his footballing head will come in handy for the games. But at Ibrox, I agree with what Ralph says. And I mentioned this last week. I think Maeda will run Goldson and McGregor into the ground. He'll terrify them.
What position are you playing Maeda?
I'd probably just tell him to go up front.
Tell him where to go.
No, but left the centre maybe. But you've got to remember, like Celtic don't play. Like Celtic play inverted fullbacks, etc. Somebody's meant to only Jota hogs the wing, so to speak. So Maeda. So again, this brings me back to what we discussed last week, right? Rangers have to win. Rangers have to come out and try and win this game, right, Hector? I know you think they'll just go for set pieces, etc. But at some point, they're going to have to play expansive football, and at that point,
what's your front three?
So I
start
just whoever play you want.
Giacomakis through the middle, Maeda, and then Abada.
Do you know the one thing, Desi? Sorry, the one thing that I'm finding beautiful about this is it took me and you and Ralph at least 3 months to convince Hector that Giacomakis was a decent footballer. We said there was a player in there going back to October, and he rejected it. He said no, not a chance. He's a diddy. He's a done. Same way he started the season.
Oh no, Giacomakis. I've always
and now he's his biggest fan.
Jackie Nacky Nicknock, sarcasm him the big man.
He's sitting there drinking ouzo. I mean,
Oh no. I'll take Starfelt. You can give me the Starfelt. I fully deserve that if he turns it around, which he won't. Giacomakis, never doubted him.
Oh, you watch Giacomakis the other night. It takes him about 40 minutes to.
Negative again. Here he goes. Off negative rant again.
Listen, I'm quite happy to let him get to find his way into a game, and then, as you say, from 8 yards out, that's where we want him to get onto the ball. Again, what is it? 9 games, nine first touch goals. I mean, we're not looking for
Really
somebody
needs to contribute more off the ball, doesn't he?
We're looking for somebody again like that. Dembele, the strike the other night, he was the correct place for that ball to hit off him and going in. That's
brilliant.
I'm praising that, Hector. I'm not saying he's not a super footballer, but he's a perfect striker for us.
So I think Jota's they're off it, right? Jota's a must start on the left wing, right? I think for what you've just articulated, I think his pace, his movement, his delivery, ability to beat a man and score goals. So I think he's a must in the left wing. Giakoumakis through the middle, I think he gave them a torrid time. We battered them 3-0 at Celtic Park. They couldn't handle Giakoumakis. Didn't score, but Goldson and Bassi were terrified of him that game.
Ragdoll.
They've had it fairly easy against their attackers in terms of physicality. They didn't like it one wee bit. He would start. And then the hardest one's the last position. I think...
Mikey Jones.
Ben Doak. I think. Do you know what? I think.
You've gone two up front. You've gone with Ralph 3-5-2.
I would go my head on the right. I think the pace and the energy and the closing down I think it's frightening for teams because they'll have to come at us to a degree. We'll get more space against them than we'd normally get against teams who sit off a deep against us. They'll come up against us, and that should help us to play into that space behind them.
Bassi's quick. They play Bassi at left back, and Bassi's quick. So
and soon we forget Kyogo.
No. I don't think he's ready to start.
He's not ready to start. Definitely not ready to start.
He comes on after 60 minutes or 65 minutes.
From that whole discussion now, the most important thing is we could find a case for each and every one of half a dozen forwards to be playing. And we have not been in that position, certainly.
Ever. I can't. When's the last time we had, you had Sutton, Hartson, Larson. You had three. And sometimes you argued you'd start two or two out of three. When's the last time? When's the last time we did, to your
Maloney.
point?
Right now we did with Maloney, McGeady, all them were all in the same kind of setup.
Yeah, but they weren't.
Usually play, wouldn't they? Would find a place for them.
Yeah.
Sutton would drop back behind Harrison and Lawson. This time round, somebody's got to miss out. But when they come on, it's a top class forward you're bringing on that's fresh off the bench, that fits into the formation. We've become a 15-man team.
Well, there's a wee question. Positivity again, Hector. Hatate coming back into his game. I thought he did well the other night.
He did well, and again, Ange did well at half time because he beat
hooking
him.
Yeah,
don't take a risk. Don't go to 10 men. He did. He looked more like the player he had been. But we said that in the podcast that you didn't record. That
he said a lot. That was
I don't know. I don't know if we got that there. I think
really good one.
There was a disruption on the line there.
We said that with him and O'Reilly, right? They come in and they hit the ground running. They were terrific, but they're young. They'll take a dip. Doesn't mean they're not good players. They are good players. They come back again.
No, sorry, but again, Monty, it's quite amazing to see Maeda, to see everybody else. But people seem to be quick to kind of judge him. And again, that sounds overcritical. They did suddenly go, oh, this guy's, I'm not sure, have we really signed him or is it just a loan possible? And then again, you watch him tomorrow night and he's a different level of footballer altogether. I mean, it is a different level when you watch him in like a Kyogo. They're playing on a different level, I think.
And part of it, I've watched some of them and probably too critical. We talked about we would move to a particular type of physicality in the team because if you're looking for that type of pace and you're looking for that technique, it's that Barcelona team of very, very small, slight, wiry players who could just run all fucking day with pace and had brilliant technique. And sometimes I watch him and go, I'm too hard, like poor touch. And Maeda's touch sometimes gets away from him, but it's incredibly difficult to take a ball when you're running at that speed. But when it comes to the sort of moments in a play or in a transition where you need them to do something, they always seem to get it right. And for the price we paid for those players, bargains, like it's beyond bargains. And then I'm back to Hector's earlier point around can we find that Juranovic type left back and the left-sided centre half with that level of quality and pace and obviously centre half physicality using Postecoglou's sort of methodology, because I'm just blown away by where we are given the mess we were in July. I'm genuinely taken back. I hope we do what we did with Rodgers after the first season and give Postecoglou a 5-year contract. I hope. If your man Nicholson is even fucking thinking smart, he should be thinking that's the first thing we do, because inevitably someone's going to knock the door in the next year or two and say, here fella, come you down here and build that for us.
Ragnick, perchance.
No, I think I was talking to guys, a big United man, saying that the Ajax manager, Ten Hag or whatever, he's saying he's a shoe-in. That's the guy that United have earmarked, and he's happy to work with Ragnick, and Ragnick will go upstairs. I heard that today.
So can I take it forward then? Hopefully, just a couple of weeks after that game, but it might be the game against them in either the cup semi-final or just after that against them at Celtic
Cup
Park.
semi-finals confirmed for the 17th of April.
Yeah, Sunday. We get to play the Sunday on a cut-off.
So hopefully by that point, Kyogo's fully fit.
Yes.
Right.
I know your question.
Oh, I've got to ask it.
4 up front.
Right.
4 up front.
What are you doing? What team are you picking up front? What's your attack?
I would put.
You want to go to me again, or do you want to go Desi?
Whoever wants to take
it. If you go first.
Maeda on the left, Giakoumakis up front, Jota on the right. Switch it all around.
Kyogo doesn't get a game, a start.
Kyogo's still on the bench, yeah.
Not
a chance. Kyogo for the.
You really are.
For the Scottish Cup final. He's keeping him for the Scottish Cup final.
He's your best forward.
You keep him. Yes,
I don't leave your best forward out.
If Giakoumakis scores goals,
how quickly they forget? He's our best forward by a mile.
Giakoumakis keeps scoring goals.
I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast.
Why would you drop him?
I would try and find I don't know how Andrew's going to do it. I'd try and find a place with two of them. I don't know how we do it.
Our system, you can't. Otherwise,
right, no, hold on. Can you hear Desi? Go on, Desi. You're going to get Ange just to change his system just for you.
You don't need to hold a midfielder against Rangers. Let's be honest. I mean, we should be looking at a good 3 or 4. By that time, the league will be finished. By the time we meet the aim for the.
So let's bring it back a wee bit. So what are you doing? Who's your? You're going to go for it. You know that's not going to happen, but you know that's Ange's not going to do that. So who you pick? Who's your front three?
Our front three. I would give Giakoumakis. In fact, we'll give Giakoumakis a rest. We'll put Kyogo through the middle just to get him warmed up, Monty, for the cup final. I mean, just to let him a wee bit loose, and then we'll look to bring on Giakoumakis towards the last half an hour. So I'll go with Jota, Kyogo, and Abada. And that Maeda.
You dropped Maeda already?
Because you don't want to burn these.
How quickly he forgets.
This guy's played 50 games.
Ralph, bring some sanity to this conversation.
You've got 5 subs. You've got to.
No, you're like a kid in a sweet shop with a tenner. You're going to give me one of them and one of them and one of them.
No, you're like the guy on these detective dramas who forgot that he told the police a year ago. You were talking about how good it was. Ange's rotating the squad. It's no harm telling you new is I'm rotating the squad. And
you're telling me there's no his job and pick a front 4. That's what you're telling him. Ralph, bring some sanity into the conversation.
If you leave him long enough, he'll have McGregor playing left back.
He's not getting a game.
Do you know what? We have moved, when you think about the change and the difference now in the team, it's not so long ago we were playing Mikey Johnson up front on his own against him.
Lewis Morgan,
yeah. Now we've got 9 to choose from, and we're playing them 3 times. So what we need to do for each game is just put the 9 names in the hat, and the first 3 out get to play the first game. The next 3 out get to play in the second game, and the final 3 out play in the third game. And then that's your front 3 all happy because they all get to start one, and you can bring on substitutes as and when we need them to either humiliate them or pull back in.
I'm just picturing Peter Lowell shaking somewhere and he doesn't know why. The fact that you've got 9 forwards to fill 3 positions, and he's saying there's something not right in the universe.
But the thing is, at this stage of the season, there's going to be suspensions, there's going to be injuries. We're in a position that they're not in. And if we lose 1 forward or 2 forwards, we've got 1 or 2 that can come in. And it'll not
Ralph,
that's
answer my question. Who's your front 3?
I'm going to stick. This is the cup semi-final.
Your best front 3.
No,
they're all fully fit. Kyogo's fully fit.
This is the game after the split.
You couldn't pick a best front 3. Kyogo.
You've got to do it.
Hector. Hector, I'll bring it back to
It's
you.
hard. It's really hard.
Hector, I'll bring it back to
You couldn't do
you.
that, because
Everybody's fit.
any two from three, if you're playing with two up front.
Jota on the left.
No, hold on,
Jota
Hector,
on the left.
Hector, hold on.
Do we have to have
Wait a
wingers?
minute, Hector, I'll
Yes.
bring it back to you. Everybody's fit. Who's your midfield?
McGregor and McGregor. For my three.
No,
Remember?
McGrain. You were meant to say McGrain.
Aye, well, he's right back. No, McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate.
Okay, we stick me with so Turnbull can this week.
You're not bothering with a right foot in the team then?
McGregor, he can use both foot. Up front, Jota on the left, Kyogo through the middle. And I love big Giakoumakis, but Kyogo through the middle for me. And on the right, I would have Celtic Park.
Mm-hmm.
I think Weabad is good for a goal at Celtic Park against them with the space. Jota and Kyogo great.
So on your bench, you've got Roderick and Turnbull.
And I've got Maeda, and I've got Giakoumakis, and I've got
And we'll still not get a keeper for Joe
Scott
Hart
Bain. I've got Scott Bain, and obviously the blessed
and Ben Doak.
Busquets.
And Ben Doak.
Aye. Listen, this conversations, and this is actually a great thing. Did you say it, Ralph? Because you get back at not that long ago, we're all going, Christ, you could struggle to pick a front three.
Huh?
Now we're actually deliberating over who's the best fit, because they're all doing pretty well.
You can make a case for everybody.
Yeah. And the only reason, by the way, lads, the only reason we can do that is how solid Carl Starfelt has been at the back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is the rock. He is the asteroid.
He's a cock.
He is the asteroid
A
upon which
statistic
our
about
universe
data
is
before
built.
we move away from the forwards, which I found kind of hard to believe. But Ryan Kent, they're £20 million player. His best ever season, with statistically with goals scored and assists, isn't as good as Abida this season.
Abida? Who's Abida?
Aye, I mean, that's that new guy.
Abara Abira, tomato.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Right.
Edit that out.
Right, so so we go to aim the cup, right? So let's look at I know we're looking to keep it positive, and let's think positive here, Hector. This is the final topic of the night, and I've just written the words Songgate. There had been a few, and again I'm thinking positive as in a positive outcome for all of us. A few folks singing no Protestants at all, etc. up at Tannadice, and I think it's been uttered at a few other games, to be brutally honest with you. But it's a condemnation, so let's be positive about the overall universal condemnation about hearing such things.
I don't go to the away games. Right, I've got like you.
It's your tag. You're not allowed to do it with your tag.
I've got a season ticket for the home, obviously for the home games. And at Celtic Park, I've not heard it. I've not heard it at Celtic Park sung by anybody. The away games, and I've seen it back, and there's too many singing it. And more than likely it's going to be the young team, or probably one or two. But it doesn't matter. And we know this through experience, because we were that young team back a long time ago, and that song was sung regularly back then with the add-ons we're talking about, and we know it was. And when I was 14, 15, I hate to admit it, I probably sang it myself, not having a fucking clue what I was singing about, but quickly was educated, don't sing shit like that. And we did. We stopped it, and it was rooted out for 20, 30 years, and it's made its way back again, and I hate it, I detest it, Roma being. For us, we're above that. How can we sing a song like that? Or some of your fans put the add-ons like that when you've got Jockstein, Danny McGrain, Kenny Dalglish, all these wonderful people. It's beyond me. It's beyond me. I'm hoping it's just young people who are just buried up and daft, and they can quickly change it around. If it's people older than that, that's a worry.
I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a second. Monty, if you start telling people what to sing and what not to sing, are you going down a dangerous road? Or is this just one of the things?
Well, so firstly, I think that's fucking vile, that line in that song, but I'm as guilty as anybody in my teens of singing it. I believe firmly that it isn't older ones, it's young fellas that are probably had a few too many sherries and given it loads. But I'm of a mind of, and I used to not, when we had Miles of Wood, another one of our contributors years back who would have been very much in the let the people sing camp, and I would have been, no, we don't need to. We actually don't need to. We can airbrush all that out. I've gone full circle now. I believe that I believe you can't tell people what to do and what to sing. I believe if the notion of democracy and free speech and all that exists, then sing whatever you want, but have the consequences to go along with. So own it. Yeah. And reiterating that that's fucking vile. And if you were singing it beside me now at this stage of my life, I'd be fucking calling you out on it, no matter what age you are. And I know that and it's good. And the fact that we can debate this and not go into the whataboutery is extremely important, because it's what sets us apart from the rest of it. It's wrong. It shouldn't be happening in the support. Whatever the club need to do to figure out what the fuck happened to make sure it doesn't happen, perfect. But what I absolutely wouldn't take, and I've seen this on Twitter, two guys who have a lot of respect for in business, David Lowe and Roger Mitchell, getting into a fucking knicker-ringing session about how this is just the culture of the club and it's not for them. And David Lowe, to be fair, stood his ground a bit, disappointed in what Roger was saying. But his point was that somehow we've fallen to a lowest common denominator because everything now is just a protest. And that's bollocks. They're completely unrelated. And I think it's a point worth mentioning. The identity of the club will always be interwoven with Irish nationalism, republicanism, call it what you want. And for people who aren't of that persuasion, there's nothing they can do about that. In the same way that, other than calling the board a bunch of Tory cunts, I really don't care about anybody else's politics or background. They're Celtic fans. So we have to be very, very clear, Desi, and sorry I'm on a wee bit of a rant. Those songs of Irish identity, Scottish identity, all of those things are welcome at Celtic Park. Sectarianism never was, never will be, never should be, and it should be fucking rooted out by the throat by whoever did it. And that's me off my soapbox now, but qualified with let the people sing.
All right. Well, I'll jump on that soapbox, We've always prided ourselves in that we sing songs about what we love, what we respect, what we admire. And we've always pointed out others for singing songs about what they hate, for holding parades about what they hate, what they despise, what they don't want to be associated with. And that line in that particular song brings us down to that level, which I find deeply ashaming. I want no part of it. My time travelling to the away matches, I never found it a problem getting a ticket, even if our supporters club hadn't got enough. That's because the way the club allocate the tickets, they go to big CSCs that will get maybe 20, 25 tickets. They don't use them all, and they give them away outside the ground. To what I have seen, and I'm only commenting on my own experiences, there are people going to the away games that won't have a season book, probably don't even go to Celtic Park on a regular basis, but they know they'll get a ticket for an away day where they can have a few beers and sing a few rebel songs. They're not the same as, and I hate to categorise supporters in any sense, but they're not the same as what we were even back then when we were younger.
But that's not the rebel song. It's the issue. It's the add-on to that song.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. And what happens is they start singing the rebel songs. I heard Boys of the Old Brigade, and I've heard Billy Reid a couple of times. They're rebel songs. They don't have add-ons. Again, borderline, maybe not acceptable at football matches. That can be debated. What cannot be debated is that outright line of hatred that's in that add-on. And what I tended to find at the away games was they would sing all the way through, but they would kind of run out of songs.
Yeah.
And we had a running bet amongst us at the time that sooner or later somebody was going to sing "I'd Rather Be Than a Hun," because they'd got nothing left to sing. Somebody sang at an Airbus once and got a slap, and it was the same thing.
But we are vintage different, Ralph. Sorry to cut in on you. We are Celtic da/Granda variety. The younger fella now, I've had these discussions and debates with younger ones, even just travelling over, talking to people you'd randomly meet, about how their affinity and how their identity gets expressed at Celtic matches. And there's an awakening over here in a much younger generation, and an alignment to the notion of being a rebel that was suppressed for so long. We're at the end of the generation that needed to wash out the immediate fucking horror of the Troubles. We're at the end of that now. They're up. They have their own kids. They all belt out rebel songs. They all love it. I don't even believe it's that type of individual that would inject that into a song. There's just this little, and it's uneducated, or it's drunk, and it doesn't know what it's doing. It's not the thing that it was amplified to be, but it doesn't detract from the fact that it's fucking vile and should be rooted out by the throat. So how you find that balance in someone making a mistake, if this was consistent, and by the way, I didn't pick up on it. You know, and then you're into the debate now, is soon there'll be no fucking Huns at all. Is that acceptable? I believe it is. I believe that is head-on confrontational rivalry. It's extremely detached from the phrase that has now been mass reported. So for me, in my let the people sing, I don't believe, and the same way, and Desi and I share this thought, there should be no barriers to comedy. I love the ultimate insult in comedy in the same way that I'm okay with being that. And I know that that also would insult huge amounts of people. So we don't have a collective brain. We don't have a collective thought. We have very, very different views on what constitutes political reality and our way of life. But ultimately, the one thing that should unify us in this is that is completely unacceptable. And the club needs to do everything it can to ensure it doesn't happen again. And from that, I don't know anyone, genuinely since my mid to late teens, I can't recall it being sung on a supporters bus that I went on any time in my 20s. I haven't heard it at Celtic Park or even on the boat or in any of the bars I've been in. And that's the guts of fucking 25 years. So I have no idea where that came from.
I'm just sitting here thinking, right, when was the last time we heard something like, for example, Cheer Up Alex McLeish, Sad Orange Bastard style songs? Know what I mean? The Day or Die Away, or have they still been popping up for in the last 10 years or so? I just can't recall them hearing that sort of thing. But again,
they've still been
that's
doing
on a sliding scale. That's
I think
still
Chris
on
Wood
that
gets
scale.
a bit of it when he's in the TV gantry. I think there's certainly been reports of that.
Exactly, Chris Boyd. So if I go by his example, so again, but that's this that's so you've got that wind up, and again, like we're talking there a lot about, it's people taking a drink and the youngsters, etc., etc. I think personally that's this kind of this making it fit. And it's just the one. I think it's more an ignorance thing.
It's a lazy excuse.
People are just ignorant of what impact that can have, as we all were when we used to sing it. Let's be brutal. We're not kidding anybody on here that we're saints. We all sang it. It's just that the stupid exuberance, for want of a better word, of youth, that they don't know any better. So again, it is for somebody to educate them about the impact this can have. I mean, they're no stupid people, but it's the fact that I don't think they're aware of the actual impact that
If it is youth.
But that's the key. Irrespective of who it is, own the consequences then. And the club has to facilitate them owning the consequences of it. But there's one other piece, and it's not a defence. It's genuinely not a defence. I've had these debates on an ongoing basis with very, very intelligent friends of mine in relation to, for example, the political issues between Ukraine and Russia. The level of sanctimonious hurt that has been elevated since the game on Monday night is completely disproportionate to the level of ongoing sanctimonious hurt whenever similar songs are heard. And I don't want to go into the whataboutery. It's the hypocrisy of it. In the same way that I'm in fucking significant debates with people, commending them on how fucking annoyed they are about Ukraine and asking them why they've never expressed an opinion about Palestine for the last 10 or 15 years, because worse is happening on an ongoing basis. And these are just our differences. These are, by the way, Celtic fans. Asking them, why the fuck have you got a Ukraine flag on your bio? Why haven't you had one? And I get silence. No one can answer it. So why are you whipped up into a frenzy about one issue when there are comparative multiple examples of the same issue that you've never been annoyed about? And that's what I think we need to all collectively look at and go, as a club, we aspire to be this thing. As a club, we aspire to be more than a club. And I genuinely believe we are. But when you start breaking it down and coming down the bars of the notes, there's identity, and everything fractures as you come down this tree. So my politics, you boys won't share my politics, but my politics are my business in the same way yours are yours. My choice of songs are there, but I stay within the boundaries of what I deem to be acceptable. So how does a club mandate that other than making people own their consequences? So it's a good debate. I know it's dark. We didn't want to get down a fucking dark rabbit hole, but for me, let the people sing, but own it. Sing what you fucking want. Say what you want, but own the consequences.
Sorry, Monty, but as I said, like it's still been positive because this has been universally discussed and pilloried, and kind of people wanting action taken rather than just it's a minority. It's a few young boys with a drink in them. It only happens here and there. It only happened again. Idea. This in denial. We're actually publicly, and here we are discussing it. Everybody was discussing it on Twitter. People like Jim Spence, who was highlighting it, was getting publicly backed rather than the normal thing would be just to shoot the messenger. No, that sort of idea. So that's a positive out of this, and hopefully we will see a lesson has been learnt that there is a million other songs in the Celtic songbook that we can
and we
go
pride
ahead.
ourselves
And wind up songs. And this is the thing. For the last couple of years, the sheer positivity and impressive songs that the Celtic fans have come up with have been unbelievable. Yeah. So you'd imagine that it wouldn't be too hard to come up with some new songs to highlight our current superstars. To replace any problematic songs.
We've got a brilliant songbook.
Who'd have thought the Carpenters would be top of our song list at the minute?
The Carpenters. You've hit the nail on the head, Desi. The songbook that's been created primarily by the Green Brigade and the boys groups, they're the guys that start most of them. It's phenomenal. The Stuart Armstrong one, the Dedrick Bayata one to, what's his face? One of your heroes, Billy... No, Billy Idol, the guy.
Billy Joe.
Billy Joe, aye. Aye, remember that? That was genius, wasn't it?
I was going to say, see when you were saying that, Bayata one, I was going to go, Bayata.
Aye, but you know what I mean? We're rolling them off there now. Depeche Mode, you just can't get enough.
Exactly.
They've been so creative and so good. And just to be clear on this, I'm not criticising saying the Green Brigade, because I know for a fact they wouldn't be singing the add-ons. They are poor. All that, before MD takes that the wrong way, goes on their high horse. That group detest any form of racism and bigotry, and would actually pull somebody for it. So just got to be clear on that. What a songbook. Guys, have a word. There's somebody really singing it, and I get it's no easy. If you go to the away games and there's 20, 30, 40 mob handed, I know. But somebody might know somebody, a youngin or whatever. Like, have a word in the ear. Like, nip it in the bud, son. Right? And
that's it. We prided ourselves, and always have prided ourselves on self-policing. I mean, at the away games, whenever any chance. But that, and you know, away games in Europe especially, we tended to keep ourselves right because you're a representative of the club when you have the jersey on. You're a representative of the club when you have a ticket at an away ground. Whether you like it or not, you're an ambassador for the club. And that's what I mean about people. I don't know how you... I'd probably get fucking plastered tomorrow and say 1,000 things out of turn, right? So that's a half a by ball for poor behaviour, inappropriate jokes or saying something. But I own that. That's me.
Yeah.
How do you get someone to own it when they do it as an ambassador of the football club with a ticket at an away ground? And I think if we solve that, then this thing will never appear again. Although I'm still baffled because I hadn't fucking heard it in genuinely 20 odd years. So I don't know where it came from. So
in business, in life, the most obnoxious and horrible people you'll come across are the white 55-year-old men and women. And I think somebody's picked up a ticket off somebody that couldn't go to the game, or a couple of tickets, and they've went there for the first time in a while, and they've dug back into the songs they sung the last time they were at the game, and a few drunks around them have picked up on it.
Picked it up and away they went.
So there we go.
Let's find who it was. And
Lord Looking is a guy who turned up at Tannadice and started singing "Soon There'll Be No Protestants at All." You heard it here first. Right, we're going to wrap it up here. Apart from Hector, will you be looking to get a Scottish Cup semi-final ticket, or will you be watching it from the suburban outlook?
I'm knowing the thing, mate. What do you call it? The away list? Is it the away list or the cup ticket scheme? I'm knowing it.
Did you not say to me that Was your trade-off with me that, remember I said if we got the European quarter-final, I would get a box for us all to go to? Did you not say you would do that for the Scottish Cup semi-final?
That was on that podcast I never recorded.
That was the fuck. I told you there was fucking gold on that.
You have no evidence. You have no evidence. Then sorry, I can't confirm or deny that. No, I'll be watching it on the box.
We'll be watching it courtesy of our friends at Ripcord. Your very best IPTV suppliers on Twitter, everyone.
Do they have a hospitality box at Hampden?
It's only £300 a head, Monty, if you want to take it, though.
That's good. I'll get free hospitality for that.
There's free parking.
Free parking and the whole lot, yeah.
Right, okay, that just leaves it for me to say thanks very much to everyone, as always, for listening. Please like and subscribe as where possible on any provider that you're using. Please try and access Ralph's etims.net, his daily etims diary. It's been very good this week. I've enjoyed it, Ralph, although I did think I should have won the caption contest on Monday, but I'll let that one go. So please try and join in with Ralph's etims diary. And then it's just left for me to thank Hector Bandido, Monty C. Burns, and Ralph Mal for joining me tonight. Thank you, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Desi. Thanks, lads. Really enjoyed that.
Okay, folks, thanks very much for listening. Take care. Good night.